In the late summer of 1680, a religious leader from the Tawayan people named Pope began rallying the tribes across New Mexico for a unified rebellion against the Spanish colonizers. The revolt saw support from various Pueblo groups, Tewa pueblos like Okai Owinge, San Juan, San Ildefonso, Tesuque, Nambe, Pojoaque, and Santa Clara, Tiwa pueblos such as Taos, Picuris, Sandia, Isleta, Towa Pueblo, Gemes, Querezan pueblos like Cochiti, Santo Domingo, Quewa, San Felipe, Zia, Santa Ana, Acoma, Laguna, and Zuni, with key locations such as Halona, Hawiku, Quechipawan, Coaquina, Hampasawan, and Yaliku. Even the Navajo and Apache, tribes who had also endured Spanish violence and oppression, lent their support to the cause. On August 10, 1680, coordinated attacks launched from multiple directions. Pueblo warriors, united in purpose, killed hundreds of Spanish settlers, soldiers, and priests. Within a mere 11 days, the Spanish were driven from New Mexico, seeking refuge in El Paso. This revolt marked a rare moment in history when the Pueblo people, along with their allies, reclaimed their land, freedom, and culture. For the next 12 years, the Puebloans revived their traditional religious practices and governance, ruling themselves free of Spanish colonial control. Welcome back to In Search of Tontonteac. Some scholars argue that the Hopi were more isolated from the Spanish influence, with less direct contact and limited interaction compared to the Rio Grande Pueblos. Even though their decentralized structure, where each mesa operated independently, made large-scale coordination difficult, the Spanish had several missions built in the Hopi regions. However, a deeper look reveals that the Hopi, though absent from the Central Rebellion, were not passive in the face of Spanish occupation. Upon hearing of the Pueblo Revolt, the Hopi acted decisively in their own right. In 1680, they executed their own attacks, killing Spanish friars and expelling the colonizers from their lands. Unlike the Rio Grande Pueblos, the Hopi did not allow the Spanish to return and remained free from colonial control for most of the period. Though the Hopi were not part of Pope's Grand Rebellion, they nonetheless liberated themselves from Spanish rule, maintaining their independence while other pueblos were reconquered by the Spanish in 1692. But there's a twist to this story. While the Pueblo Revolt is often seen as a unified effort, the Hopi, the ancient peoples of the mesas, were notably absent from the rebellion's larger coalition. Why? There is a belief amongst the Hopi they have claim to the area currently known as Tonto Basin. They believe that their ancestors were once living in that area. From the older Spanish narrative, Marata, Tontonteac, Acoma, and Tequayo and Quivira were the kingdoms of the north. The Hohokam people abandoned most of their settlements during the period between 1350 and 1450. It is thought that the Great Drought from 1276 to 1299, combined with a subsequent period of sparse and unpredictable rainfall that persisted until approximately 1450, contributed to this process. The later occupants of the area, the Pima and Tohono O'odham, or also known as Papago, are thought to be the direct descendants of the Hohokam people. We have speculated that it could have been the exact opposite, and that heavy rainfall and/or flooding could have caused their abandonment of their cities. We also know that the Spanish mandate was to Christianize the indigenous population and to extract tribute for the crown, and violence was often used in order to gain these ends. But what if the Spanish encountered the Hohokam? We have been told stories that Cibola and Tontonteac were burnt to the ground. We do not have enough information to know if it was burnt to the ground by Spanish or by other enemies, the Cibola people, or the Tontonteac people. Could Cibola and Tontonteac been the Hohokam? From what we have discovered, Ancient Americas were full of people, and they were networking amongst various different groups of people over a vast amount of land. For example, we have Mayan ball courts in the Hohokam Society. If the Spanish destroyed Tontonteac and Cibola, this would cause a great amount of fear and deep hostilities amongst their neighbors, the Zuni and the Hopi. It would also make a great deal of sense as to why the nations were not actively communicating amongst each other. It also explains why the population within the Arizona region was full of newcomers rather than the people who were supposed to be there. By the early 18th century, epidemic disease and colonial violence had reduced the indigenous population and the number of Pueblo settlements, which had fallen from approximately 75 to between 25 and 30 communities. Despite these changes, many aspects of ancestral Pueblo culture persist in contemporary Pueblo religions, languages, agricultural practices, and craft production. Pueblo descendants numbered some 75,000 individuals in the early 21st century.